We are back with some more Madden 23 player ratings, and I thought this would be a pretty cool idea to tie us over until we can finally get our hands on Madden 23 and start actually playing with the Texans and getting ready for our franchise, our online league. So I thought it'd be cool to kind of go over in Madden. I'm not talking about real life here. But in Madden, if I were going in with the Falcons this Madden, kind of what I would do to rebuild them and get them ready to be a contender. If you're new to my channel, we every Madden we take one team or an online league, we try to rebuild them, bring them back to the promised lands, get them a Super Bowl, and it's been pretty successful. We've got rings with the Bengals, the Giants, and the Seahawks so far. We're the Texans this Madden, but today we're taking a look at the Falcons. It's going to be different than the Texans videos where I kind of make a bunch of cuts and go really in depth with stuff. We're just going to breeze over every position group and kind of what I would do if we had like a 5-6 year season window, which is usually how long our franchises go in Legacy League, is about 5 to 6 seasons, and then we're on to the next Madden. So if we had a 5 to 6 season window, kind of what I would do to get us ready to compete as soon as possible. Quarterback, pretty easy. Desmond Ridder, you throw him in the lineup, you use him the whole Madden. I mean, if I were a Falcons user in any online league or franchise or anything, I don't see myself drafting a quarterback ever unless Desmond Ridder's just completely terrible for you. He already has 88 speed and 91 acceleration, which is just absolutely amazing to have a quarterback with that speed. And he's sitting at 91 throw power too. I mean, there's really no reason to start Marcus Mariota or draft unless you just have a personal problem with Desmond. You got 4 years on his rookie deal, so you don't have to worry about paying him for 4 seasons, which is great. It's as simple as it gets with Desmond Reed. He actually has pretty good throwing stats too. They're all high 70s and low 80s, so not too bad there. Running back's kind of an interesting one. I would run Cordero Patterson into the ground. He's got 2 years left on his deal, and he would be the starter for those 2 seasons. And if for some reason he's just a monster, I guess you could re-sign him. I wouldn't be looking forward to that. I would just run Cordero into the ground, maybe throw some Tyler Algier, I think it's how you pronounce his name, here and there in those first 2 seasons. And I would probably focus train Tyler as well in those 2 seasons. That way, when Cordero's up and he is gone, I would not re-sign him. I would either throw Tyler Algier in the starting lineup at that time, or I would draft someone the season or the draft after Cordero leaves. One or the other. Either Tyler, throw him in after the couple seasons, or draft a replacement, probably in the middle-ish rounds. I wouldn't spend too much of running backs are very easy to replace. Unless you just love running the ball, you could spend the early round pick. I wouldn't. I would do middle-late rounds down on running back for this squad. Maybe even try to sign someone, because you can get him for pretty cheap in free agency once Cordero's contract's up. But I would keep Patterson. I would just run him into the ground. He's old. Just get what you can out of him before the age starts creeping up on him. Receiver gets a little bit interesting. This is the first one where I'd make a trade as quick as possible. Oops. Once we can get here, I would trade Calvin Ridley ASAP, man. I would get Calvin Ridley up out of there. Reason being, there's a lot of young talent that you can develop in Madden pretty easily. I've already seen Bryan Edwards. I think it was 2 Maddens ago. Our Raiders user turned Bryan Edwards into a monster, like high 80s overall. So I've seen it happen. Bryan Edwards can turn into a beast. I think he's 6'3" or something. He's a pretty tall dude as well. Got good speed. So I would start off my season with trying to get Calvin Ridley out. If A.J. Brown in real life can get a first-round pick, I mean, Calvin Ridley's got to be able to get, at the minimum, a second-round pick. I mean, come on. They're pretty similar in, not play style, but just talent, I guess. They're very, very similar. So you would at least hope you could get a second-round pick out of Calvin. If for some reason you get a third, that's pretty piss poor, but you should at least bare minimum be able to get a second out of him. I'd ship him out of town. You won't have to re-sign him, and then I would roll with Drake London, the new hotness, first-round pick, plop him straight as your wide receiver 1, develop him as quickly as you can, and then I would roll Bryan Edwards out wide as your wide receiver 2, and then in my first draft, I would probably draft a solid slot receiver, either with my first-round pick or second-round pick. Maybe it's the second-round pick or first-round pick you got for Calvin Ridley. You should have some decent draft capital, and I would draft a solid slot receiver, so that way in your 5-6 season window, you got 3 very young receivers that can develop, that whole entire time with Desmond Ridder. And then by the time, year 3 or 4, if they all are going up there and overall, you should be sitting pretty by about season 3, season 4. Bryan Edwards, Drake London, the new first, second round pick, slot receiver that you get in the first draft, those 3 paired with a rookie quarterback will be lethal. It will be lethal. The only problem with that is when you get to about year 5 or 6, when you have to start, paying all these guys, one of them might have to walk, or you might have to trade one of them. I would probably trade, the second tier. So say if Bryan Edwards, for some reason, is a much better receiver by year 3 or 4 than Drake London, I'd probably trade Drake London. Vice versa too. If Drake London by year 3 or 4 is higher than Bryan Edwards, I would trade Bryan Edwards, and then you could do the same process: trade the receiver and then draft the replacement in the following draft. But that's how I would roll with receiver. Tight end's easy. I mean, do I really even got to talk about tight end? I mean, Kyle Pitts is here. You re-sign the man when his rookie deal's up. There's no reason not to. This guy's a cheat code. He really is. 91 speed, 93 acceleration. What else can I say? 90 catching. He's a monster. They signed this guy or drafted this dude as well this year. Nothing too special, I guess. I guess he could be the backup tight end, but the main guys is Kyle Pitts. There's nothing really else to say. Offensive line is actually a little bit better than I thought, and not too hard to get to a solid point. Jake Matthews should be your starting left tackle whole entire series. If you're going, like I said, if I was taking the Falcons over for a Madden where we do 5-6 seasons, Jake Matthews would be my starting left tackle the whole time. I wouldn't even worry about that. Left guard is where I would draft immediately. First draft, get it out of the way, get the guard in there, let him develop. Early round pick. So say if I drafted the slot receiver with my first round pick, I would use my second to draft the left guard. If I draft a left guard in the first round, I'm going to use my second round pick on a slot wide receiver. Those were my early round picks. Those are what I would use on the offense to get it rolling to the next level. This left guard position's bad. None of these guys are really interesting, so I would draft a left guard and a slot receiver as early as possible. I would probably do the guard first just because offensive linemen are hard to come by, so I'd probably draft the left guard first round, slot wide receiver second round. That's just how I would do it, because at least in previous Maddens, wide receivers are pretty, abundant. They're everywhere in the draft class, so I definitely would go guard first, but if don't force it. If there's a god wide receiver chilling there, I would definitely pick the wide receiver over the guard. Center, I'm actually would be open to keeping Matt Hennessy. He's 20. Hopefully, I'm saying these names right, by the way. He's still 24 years old, 73 overall. Not bad. I mean, if you went into the first draft, it'd be hard to find a better, overall and age in the first draft. Yeah, it'd be a rookie. But, I mean, the best you'd probably get if you drafted a center in the first round in your first draft is probably 23, 22 years old and like a 74, 75. That's like your best, but I don't think you'd even get that. So Matt Hennessy, I would keep the whole entire Madden unless he just decides to pan out in the first couple seasons. I would give him at least 2 seasons, maybe even 3, to really see if he can develop. I would love to keep him just because he's so young, and by the time you get to that 5-6 season mark, he should be really, really solid for us. Right guard's a pretty easy one as well. We got Mr. Chris Lindstrom. What did I just do? Oops, I guess I didn't. Oh, I didn't hit apply. Chris, he's the starting right guard all series. Not worried about him. Pay the man, let him be the starting right guard. We'll just breeze over that one because that's just as easy as it gets for Mr. Chris. Right tackle this is the one where I wouldn't tackle in the draft first season. I would try to find an older-ish right tackle in free agency to kind of give me a couple seasons, and then I would draft one year 3-ish, 4-ish, towards the end of the series. I would draft a right tackle. Some right tackles that might be available in the first free agency period if they don't get re-signed. Rob Havenstein from the Rams, Jack Conklin from the Browns, and Mike McGlinchey from the 49ers. Those are some kind of older guys that maybe walk, maybe not get re-signed. So That's kind of where I would go with that right tackle spot. Really not too hard on the offense. The defense gets a little bit interesting just because they drafted a lot of guys over here. The left end spot is bad. I would try to draft in the earlier rounds. If you trade Calvin Ridley, like I said, you should have an extra first or second round pick. So that third early pick should be a left end. It needs help. Draft someone between let's just hypothetical trade Calvin straight for an early second. So you got 2 seconds and a first. I would spend slot receiver, left guard, and then the other one has to be a left end. It's got to be a left end. You got to get help on this side because Grady Jarrett can only do so much, man. He really can. Grady Jarrett, we'll just switch over to the right side here. He's the starting right defensive end. I would keep him as long as I can. He's a monster. Even though his overall is only 85, the dude's a beast in Madden. He's always a beast in Madden. The man just makes play. Even in real life, he's a beast. He's just an absolute monster. Absolutely love the guy. So he needs to stay. I would try my very, very hardest to keep him as long as possible. I don't know why, my mind just like froze there for a second, but I would keep him as long as possible. If he starts regressing, a little bit towards like year 3-ish, because he is pretty up there in age. I want to say he's like in his low 30s, so he's getting up there in age. If he starts regressing, then I would just draft, a high round draft pick replacement, but you wouldn't have to worry about that. I think his contract is 2 or 3 more seasons, so you wouldn't have to worry about that for a little bit, which is nice. Defensive tackle, another one that is pretty piss poor if you ask me. This is another one I would address free agency because you're using those early round picks on slot receiver, left guard, and left end. I would try to find a vet in the free agency period, year 1, to just tie us over to get us to year 2. Or maybe even year 3, probably year 2, where then you can use another early round pick to draft, your defensive tackle replacements. Some guys that might be available at the defensive tackle spot, Fletcher Cox and Javon Hargrave, both on the Eagles. They might be available. They just drafted Jordan Davis, so high first, I think it's like middle first round pick. So clearly they want to use Jordan Davis as, a starting defensive tackle. You don't draft someone in the first round if you don't expect to play them anytime soon. So one of those guys should be available, and you can go after them. Jaren Reed, he's always available. The man just flip-flops teams every season, so he should definitely be available. Jaren Reed, I love Jaren Reed as a Seahawks fan, but, he's just bouncing around from team to team at this point. Linebackers, I would go with all 3 of the rookies they drafted. They drafted 3 rookie linebackers, and I would start all 3. Left outside linebacker, I would start the second round pick, Mr. Arnold here, 84 speed, 87 acceleration. Throw his ass out there. He should be the starter of the whole entire series. Middle linebacker, I would trade Deion Jones. You don't need the man. I know Deion Jones is a beast in Madden. Trust me, I've seen this man in our past online leagues. I swear he's like top 5 in tackles every single year. He's a monster. I would trade him, get some draft capital, and then I would roll with the other second round pick that they had in Troy Anderson. He's much faster than Deion Jones, which is just crazy. He's got 92 speed, 95 acceleration, man, 87 agility. The man's a monster. His catching really isn't that bad, too. It's almost 70. So as a user middle linebacker, if you use a middle linebacker, like I use a middle linebacker a lot, Troy Anderson would be a dream to have. I would definitely try to be shipping out Deion Jones as quickly as possible, get what I can get for him, and then roll out the rookie. And then on the right side, I would roll out the 3rd round pick, D'Angelo Malone. Hopefully I'm saying that right. I do have a soft spot in my heart for Lorenzo Carter just because of my Giants franchise days, but I'd roll out all 3 rookies. D'Angelo's got 87 speed, 90 acceleration. You would have such a fast linebacker core. All super young as well, and you can just develop all 3 of them, and hopefully by year 3 or 4, I think you need a solid 2 years with this team to kind of get it really ready. So by year 3, 4, 5, and 6, you should be in a really good spot to make some things happen in the playoffs. If you're just a goated user, you could probably make things happen in the playoffs ASAP, but to really get some damage going, I think by year 3 or 4, you should be ready to go. And then, you have 2-3 seasons of just a really, really, really solid team with all these young guys being developed. Corner is a very fun position because you got the monster, AJ Terrell. I would pay this man whatever he's asking for. He should be your starting number one corner the whole entire series. If you're doing an online league for this Madden, you got to pay this man whatever he's asking for, and give him the money. He needs to stay. Casey Hayward, I want to say he's got 2 years left on his deal. Hopefully I'm right on that. I would keep him those 2 seasons, and then after his contract is up, I would draft a corner first, second round, get another young stud out there, plop him alongside AJ Terrell, and that way by year 3 or 4, he should hopefully be, 80s overall, low 80s, somewhere around there, and then he can, really, really start to develop on the squad. The only other spot is slot corner is a little rough. You don't really have much options. I mean, Corey Ballantyne, I think, came over from the Colts. He was okay. I had him on the Colts, I think. Or maybe it was the Giants. I know I've had Corey, and he was decent in the slot because I played him there. I mean, you could draft someone in the later rounds to get that slot spot figured out, that nickel corner, or you could, just keep signing a vet. I mean, that's usually what I do. If there's a spot like nickel corner is one, especially for me, if I don't have someone that I like off the rip, I usually just stick to free agency and just rotate him through. I see a vet, cheap deal, plop him on the squad, get him for a 1-year deal. He plays out the season, let him go, and then do the same thing next season. Find a vet that's good as a nickel corner. He starts. You could do that as well. Free safety safety's kind of bad on this team. I'm gonna be honest. The safety positions are not too shabby. Free safety's a little better than the strong safety spot, but it's not the best. I would definitely start Richie Grant over Eric Harris. Eric Harris, I want to say, is 30, so he's up there in age. Richie Grant's sitting at 24 years old. Decent speed, 87. Acceleration's pretty good in that 92. 89 agility. Pretty good catching at 73. His awareness isn't that bad for a 24-year-old as well. So I would start Richie Grant, give him, the first season. If he shows promise, give him another season. If he doesn't show promise that first season, I wouldn't hesitate. I would use one of my mid-round picks, 3rd, 4th, 5th round pick, to acquire a new free safety and roll out the rookie out there, see what he can do. If he shows promise, keep him, develop him, let him do his thing, let him out, fly around out there, make some plays. Strong safety is another pretty piss-poor position on this team. I would sign a vet first season. There's really not much out there. This is kind of just like a bridge to hold you over for a couple seasons. That way you can use an earlier round pick, maybe year 3. You could use an early round pick to draft a strong safety. Or, year 1 or 2, just use a late round pick and find a gem. You can do that as well. Some guys that are going to be available, or hopefully be available in your first draft coming up, is Von Bell, Keanu Neal. They're not the best options. In 2024, if you wait 2 seasons to sign, we got some better options. They could obviously re-sign, so they might not be there, but you got guys like Micah Hyde or John Johnson that could be there in 2024. So overall, there's a lot of young talent on this team, a lot of young talent that has to be developed in order for you to be ready to compete in years 3 or 4. Guys like Desmond Ridder, Drake London, Brian Edwards, all on the offensive side. You got to develop those guys. If you draft that slot wide receiver early as well, got to develop that. You already got Kyle Pitts. He's basically developed at this point. If he never went up in overall ever again and just stayed at 87, he'd still be probably one of the best tight ends in Madden, if not the best. So you don't got to worry about that. You got to get the receivers worked out in the quarterback. Cordero can hold you over while you either develop your Tyler Algier. Is that his first name? Tyler, I'm pretty sure. While you develop him in the background, or you can draft someone when Cordero leaves. Then on the defensive side, you got all the linebackers. You got 3 rookie linebackers starting, so all 3 got to develop. I think those would be a fun linebacker trio to use, because they're just so young and they got so much speed. So I think it'd be a really, really fun trio. You got to hit on another corner when Casey Hayward leaves. You got to hit on that, so that way you got Casey and AJ and whatever rookie you draft locking things down for the final seasons. You got to hit first season that left guard. If you can find a solid left guard in that first season, that first round, just draft a beast in the left guard spot, and you can find a decent-ish right tackle in free agency that first season, I mean, your offensive line's set for at least 2 years. Then you can maybe replace the right tackle spot later, but the left tackle all the way to right guard will be locked in for a long time if you can just hit on that left guard spot year one. You got to hit on that. But overall, I think it'd be a fun team to use. There's a lot of young talent. Really not much like crazy stuff that you got to do to rebuild this team. There's so much young talent that you could use in Madden that I would at least use. It wouldn't be bringing in a lot of crazy names or doing a lot of crazy trades. I think it'd just be a lot of the first 2 seasons just using a lot of the young guys and just trying to develop them as quick as possible. Hopefully I didn't run through the whole team. I didn't want to drag out the video forever though, so I tried to go as quick as I could. I'll probably post a couple more of these because I'm heading out of town, so there'll be a couple, more videos like this just talking about the teams. If you enjoyed these, let me know. I mean, I'll definitely do more when I get back. If you enjoyed these, to hold us over until we can finally play with the Texans. If you enjoyed the video, so make sure to subscribe, like, and comment, and I'll see you guys in the next one.